Torchwood. On Christmas Eve 2006, we got the Torchwood Christmas special, Combat. What could be more Christmas Eve than vicious monsters, alpha males, blood and violence? I suspect this wasn't the original plan, as the previous episode Out of Time was set at Christmas and this one is not. It's also one of the show's weaker episodes. It's kind of like a version of Fight Club, but with all the clever bits removed, leaving just the fighting. Not a great way to start the festive season. Owen is the focus of the episode. After losing Diane last week, he's become extremely depressed, avoiding work, just hanging out in bars and getting into fights. He even breaks up his affair with Gwen, which has not been mentioned for several weeks. I wasn't even sure it was still going on. The team investigate when a Weevil is captured by a masked gang in a white van. They trace them to the Lynch Frost estate agents, named after the creators of Twin Peaks, David Lynch and Mark Frost. We never see David Frost, but Mark Lynch is played by Alex Hassel, who is now the lead in Rivals, which I haven't seen yet. I don't know what kind of character he plays in that show, but in this one he is instantly hateable, as this cocky, smarmy, posh guy with a massive chin who probably went to private school, and he makes a very hissable villain. After being impressed by Owen beating a man half to death in another bar fight, Alex takes Owen back to his luxury flat and immediately takes his shirt off. But it does not go in the direction you might think. Instead, Owen finds Mark's secret room, where he has a Weevil chained to the wall as a punch bag. It's a horrific scene. He justifies it by suggesting Weevils could be humans from the far future, which could be true for all we know, but it still wouldn't make it okay. Weevils have just been treated as monsters so far, but this episode does a good job of making them more sympathetic. Eventually they end up in a Fight Club situation, with crowds of testosterone-fueled men roaring from the sidelines, while one of them gets in a cage with a Weevil, even though at least one of them has ended up horrifically dead. It's my idea of hell, but Owen is all for it in his current nihilistic state of mind, and willingly steps into the cage. Luckily for him, Jack and Gwen burst in before the Weevil can do any more than superficial damage, and Mark decides he'd rather face death by Weevil than face the consequences. Though I'm not sure if there's any law against exploiting Weevils, so he'd probably have got away with it. Meanwhile, Gwen is also struggling after her parting with Owen, and she has possibly the most shocking scene in the whole episode, as she tells Reese about her relationship with Owen, only to reveal that she's given him retcon and he won't remember a thing. She's at her absolute lowest here, desperately pleading with Reese to forgive her before he falls unconscious. She's come full circle since the first episode when it was her being retconned by Jack. Now she thinks nothing of using it herself to appease her guilty conscience. It's far more effective than the main plot. Owen is left pretty much as suicidal as he was before, but now he's developed a newfound affinity for Weevils. I'm not entirely sure what the point of all this was. I guess they were aiming for some kind of commentary on modern masculinity, and you could argue that Mark is like an early version of Andrew Tate, promoting a toxic lifestyle. It all just feels like a very hollow and superficial take on the whole subject. The writer of the episode is Noel Clarke, who has been accused of multiple counts of sexual harassment, so he's not exactly a role model himself. And judging by this episode, he's no better at writing than he was at acting. The DVD has a commentary track from Chris Chibnall, Bern Gorman, and director Andy Goddard. They talk about wanting to showcase the urban underbelly and morally grey characters. Chris enthuses about all the team working together for once, but he does admit that they could have built up the Gwen and Owen relationship a bit more in the previous episodes. And they talk about the final scene being contentious for some reason, but it's not entirely clear why. There is also a declassified episode where we see them filming a cage fight. Byrne talks about Owen's anger and self-hatred. Russell T Davies talks about the similarity between Mark and Owen. We see them choreographing the fight scenes, and John Barrowman suggests that Owen could now be part Weevil, which is an interesting idea, but I'm not sure if that was the intent. Overall, it's another grim episode, full of gratuitous violence and not much else. I'll give it 3 out of 10. Torchwood returned on New Year's Day, but before that we have the 2006 Doctor Who Christmas special, The Runaway Bride, so I'll be covering that next week. It'll be interesting to get back to Doctor Who after months of Torchwood, and Donna has become one of my favourite companions, so it'll be fun to go back to her first appearance. Press subscribe if you want to see what I think of it now, and I'll see you next time.